Hello there everyone! With Battletech now fully released, I figured it was time to teach all you lot how to actually pilot a mech, because the one main thing about Battletech, as excited as I am for this game's release, it is an incredibly complicated game. There's a lot of nuance there, and from my own personal experience playing the campaign so far, I felt like the tutorial was a little bit lackluster and didn't really contribute a whole lot aside for maybe the basics. So, this entire video is meant to help you get a basic understanding to hopefully make your campaign, if not your multiplayer skirmish playthrough, a lot more enjoyable and a lot more easier to get into. So what is Battletech exactly? Well, it's a turn-based tactic game where you are commanding a lance of 4 mechs there. That's what the terminology is called for the Battletech lore. A squad of 4 mechs is considered a lance, and you're going to be controlling each and every one of them, as far as like managing their heat, their mobility, the actions they take, and even what kind of pilots you're going to have for each of the mechs there. For the campaign itself, as well as for the skirmishes, you get preset type of characters. And each of these mechs are going to have their own little different layout there. They're each going to have their own little subsections. And at least 11 components on each of the mechs. 3 are specifically for the rear, 2 for the legs, and then you have the remaining 6 there for like the front generic components here, which are divided into the torso, the arms, the legs, and of course the headpiece there. Each mech is going to have an assortment of different array of weapons that are going to be displayed on the bottom right here. It also shows their melee potential and of course their DFA, which is death from above for any mech that has means of jump jets, which allows them to traverse the terrain and allows them to be more mobile and a lot more difficult to hit. Each of your pilots are also going to have a list of abilities and actions they can do when you have them selected there for each of their movement phase and turns, which, at least for the very beginning of the campaign, the mission there, you're able to swap through them at will there and do their moves as such. And to demonstrate how the movement works there, it's pretty straightforward for when you're outside of combat there. You get to pick your mech that you want. In this case, I'm going to move the Locust there, which is kind of my lightest, most mobile type of scout mech. It's going to move on forward, and you can move your other units at the same time there. And when you do put your first action there, you are then allowed to rotate your mech based on its movement. So that way you can change its heading and position, which is really important for those armor components I told you about, because you're going to be matching each individual area and trying to protect those that are weakened or damaged already. And then once you move all your units there, any enemy units that are on the map, they're also going to take their turns. This is the initial phase of every type of mission there. For you're going to move your entire squad there to how you see fit, and then once you get contact with enemies, that's when you begin the actual combat phase, which is where the turn order takes a dynamic difference here as shown above. Pay close attention, we have the initiative phase up top when you have actual enemy contact, which is indicated by your sensor radius that shows on the little blue circle highlight for each individual mechs. It shows right there for my Locust, which is why we are initiating combat. So, initiative phase, it has 5 different phases there, which basically is determined by the speed of your mechs there. So, the faster or lighter your mech is, the higher it is up on the initiative phase, which means it almost always gets to act first. You are allowed to put it on reserve if you so wish to kind of hold back your turn if you want to wait for your opponent to move closer or because you have like defensive buffs like these evasion traits, which are these chevrons you see on the right side of my mechs. And in the case there, when you do reserve, it reserves for your entire squad that currently has not moved just yet. And this is a good opportunity to let your opponents get in closer as demonstrated. He did take a shot at me, he did get a lucky hit as a result, but nothing's been destroyed just yet. And every time you take a shot, your evasive stacks do get reduced. I'll explain more about that in the combat. But this person is getting lucky shots for 4 stacks is actually the maximum amount of charges you can get for your evasion. So that maximized my defenses and he still managed to get 2 hits in. But now we're going to get ourselves a little bit of a retaliation. But first, let's talk a little bit about the armor damage that we've talking about here. So, with Witness selected, we have damage on the right arm as well as the center torso. There are 2 components to these armor pieces. So, the bar that's 0.50 right now is the armor, which you can take damage on these components and nothing will happen to the Eternals just yet. But once the armor is gone, the structure is vulnerable. There is always a chance you can get a critical hit. In the case of the components we're seeing there now, a medium laser or machine gun ammo could get destroyed just by additional hits to the center torso. Also need to note there that if you ever lose the center torso, your head gets destroyed, or you lose both your leg components, your mech is immediately incapacitated and is out for the rest of the battle. Everything else is fair game, it just disables and limits what your mech is capable of, based on what components are on there. So if I were to lose this left arm, I would actually lose my machine gun, and if I were to lose the right arm, I lose the second one. So there's a little bit of micromanagement you're going to need to do, like positioning and all that, to kind of defend valuable areas. But with that said, my entire enemy team has made their moves, so I have no other contacts, at least from what I know so far, in the third initiative phase, although this is a 4-on-4 skirmish mode, so I know there are 2 other targets in the field. I just have no idea where they're at or what their initiative is, so they could still possibly act in this combat phase. But when you do your movement in the combat phase, or when you have vision of anything of note, you will have these red lines to indicate what you have vision of. The red line indicates you can have weapon line of sight of them, and the dot line will indicate you have actual vision of them, but it's not actually possible for you to shoot them, mainly because you cannot rotate that far as may appear if I were to attempt to move here. And that red line will actually vanish when our mech up top here is out of vision. So, with that knowledge in hand, we're going to make our attempt to do a counterattack on this Locust, Mockingbird. And I think we're going to start off with the Locust that's just been shot at. In fact, we also have jump jets and we can also sprint, although do keep in mind if you were to sprint, you will not be able to take any actual actions, I do believe, aside for like specific abilities that you have. So there's always a risk to doing this, but it makes it easy for you to get to your evasive charges. It allows you to get to an advantageous position for future turns. And the jump jets alone are probably your most effective means of mobility if your mech is equipped with them there, for you literally can jump over terrain, take shortcuts around pathways, and it allows you to get to much better advantageous positions. Like, I can immediately jump behind this Locust and get a really good rear shot in his backside. Of course, it would leave me vulnerable to any other attacks, to any other mechs that may yet to move. So we're going to take our jump action there, get into close range combat, and start unloading on this Locust with my Spider, which is the light mech that is currently moving. So, how exactly the combat works there? You have multiple actions in fact for when you are after you do your move there. In the case of Sensor Lock, this is a pilot specific skill. There are multiple different abilities like this for each individual soldier, so in the case of skirmish mode, these are randomly generated, but you get to choose these abilities in the campaign itself. But for the combat itself, you could just hit tab when the attack key is selected, or you could just click on the mech that you wish to shoot at. And hitting tab provides you have vision of any other mech, which we do not in this case. We do have sensor contact of the other 2 mechs up here, which are unknown at the moment, but you could just hit tab to select your target, and it gives you a highlight up here of what exactly you're hitting. So the little red line here is basically demonstrating what angle you're attacking from. You also do get a sense, if you look closely at the mech silhouette itself, the highlighted red area is where you're going to be attacking from, the angle. So this will give you a very easy way to know where you're attacking from to do the damage you wish. But in general, you want to consistently hit the same spot is the main general rule, unless there's something really valuable on the mech there. In the case of this Locust, it's very similar to what we saw already, so it doesn't really matter what we aim at. It's mainly probably the center torso or legs for killing blows, but our chances to hit on the left side is randomized. We have 40% chance just because of the mobility, the evasive stacks I told you about earlier, and of course the mech size is also a factor. So, easy way to understand how the hit chance works, it's basically a d20 you're rolling there. You cannot apparently get a 100% chance to hit, but you can get a 95%. And any specific modifier of +1 or -1 is going to change your chance to hit by 5%. So you should be able to see this for my follow-up attack if I can get another mech up close enough to get the same amount. So shot modifier is +9, so just keep that in mind. If I'm going to try and see if we can demonstrate that accurately or not. But we get 2 lovely hits even at 40%. And the evasion for each attack is reduced by 1, but there also are abilities like the Sensor Lock I demonstrate that have ways to rapidly reduce the sensor or the evasion, but it's like I demonstrated earlier. these Centurions were still in the same attack phase, I just had no way to know firsthand. But we took a little bit of hits, it was a long range shot. But now, we should be okay to follow up. So, my Jenner is going to attempt to move on up. It is going to land in water, and you do get little descriptions of each of the effects as you mouse over it there. It has little different color codings for what you're landing on. So, the water is going to be highlight blue, the force is going to be highlight green, and then I believe it's brown for like rocky terrain, which probably is the rocky terrain over here if I had to guess. So, we are going to actually move on up there, try and get a good advantageous position. It's probably not going to happen though, but we get full evasion stacks to justify this. Although I don't think I'm going to have the best accuracy to kind of compare, but remember the Spider had a +9 modifier to hitting. So for our Locust here, the modifier for the laser is +7. So it was 40% before, is now 50%. And the machine guns have a lot more effective chance to hit here. I'm not exactly sure why, mind you. It's probably because, oh, they ignore evasion. So that's something I did not know about the machine guns. But, like I said, it was 40% before with the medium lasers on the Spider. And this seems consistent and accurate. So, as far as understanding hit chance, just remember you're basically rolling a d20. And each +1 or -1 modifier changes your hit chance by 5%. So we got ourselves a lovely series of hit on the Locust some more. And the other mech is about to push on up forward, whatever it is. It's taking shots at our Locust, but with maximum evasion charge, it should be very, very minimal.
You can see daylight through my armor.
So, we made through the entire turn there. That should be the last mech that could possibly act, and we still have 2 targets of our own. So, we have Sprint, as I mentioned before. It allows you to get into an advantageous position. Really, this is most practical if you're using like my Locust here, where I held my units on reserve. If I had sprinted with that instead, it would have been able to act before any of these other bigger mechs get to go. So it allowed me to do basically a double move for all intents and purposes if my shot or action wasn't very favorable for me to either do like a charge attack or a shot. But we also have means of multi-targeting, which allows you to shoot multiple targets that you have vision of. And I will demonstrate how exactly that works there. But unfortunately, I'm not actually going to see multiple targets. Oh, I take that back. This is the perfect candidate for doing that. So, multi-target is nothing really too complicated. It just allows you to shoot at 2 targets in situations for where one's like a really lightly armored vehicle for the campaign, or it's about to die, and you don't want to commit to overkilling it. So, how exactly this will function is you pick your 2 targets there. This target will be considered alpha, this target will be considered beta, and you do have means to select a 3rd target if you so wish. And then over on the right here, where before you highlight what weapons you want to shoot with, in this case you just either turn it off or you just commit to what target they're shooting at. So we're going to commit all our lasers to target B, and the missiles are going to go on target A, just to demonstrate this in action. And it shows the hit chance for all of them as you have the target selected. So the hit chance you see for this urban mech I'm shooting at now would have been the actual hit chance, but it would change for Locust if I chose to A, the A target. So let's finish up this turn here and get into the melee action. But hopefully, ideally, we can kill off our Locust friend, who still has kind of like full stacks there. Actually, that might be my Spider, I think. Yep. The evasion stack's now on 1, so the chance to hit this thing is increasingly getting better for me. And you can just click on the target, you can see an overlay again of its status. So its right torso is about gone and lost one of its machine guns, so we already did some notable damage to it. That at least is impacting how effective it's going to be for the rest of this battle. And like I said before, you can just click on these tabs to determine what weapons you want to fire, and there's multiple reasons why you want to do this. Of course, the ammo count is an important factor, and most importantly, although it's not really a big deal for Arclight's mech just yet, but the heat gauge on the left here can have a risk of you overheating. So, if you were firing a lot of energy lasers, or if you use your jump jets, which also generate heat, there is a risk of you overheating once you get past this little notch, this threshold here, and then you'll continue to take damage, or even worse, potentially power down your mech, leaving you wide open to future attacks for the rest of the turn. if not turns thereafter. But the right torso is gone there, which was the weakened component we shot earlier. And every time you destroy a component, knock down the mech, or hit the cockpit, it does an injury to the pilot, which is one of the other ways you can incapacitate a mech. But that is a little more random unless you can specifically hit the legs, which is a little more trickier to do. So we're moving into a new turn there, and the Locusts are going to get to act first on the initiative phase. It even shows on top there the number. So we're in initiative 4. All my mechs can actually go if I so wish, which allows me to take early action, maybe kill off these light mechs, or like before, I can set them on reserve to just maybe let them get a little bit closer. But I think we're going to try and take the initiative here some. So, Locust is going to move again there, because this is a great way to refresh its evasion stacks. So, we're going to try and move on forward. You can use this hill edge to provide a little bit of line of sight blocking there, although it's a little bit unreliable because you don't know how close they are to gain vision. It's only when they literally have vision for you for the actual hex you're on. So, in this case I might actually do a sprint to try and get myself hit in some, although it will leave me vulnerable. But to show that how that works in action there, you don't really get to take any shots, and as you see, my torso turning potential is incredibly limited too. And you don't get to take any other further actions as a result, so it's strictly for repositioning and maybe evading a fire, which may not have been a good idea, but we did dodge the cannon shot from the urban mech, which is a scary autocannon 10, so it is very fearsome, even if it is a light mech. So, now we can push on forward, and this is where prioritizing my components is going to come into effect. I am going to try position myself in a way that I could shoot at the left side. There's the heat bar right now, since my spider uses jump jets, and it can be a really hot mech with the energy lasers, but as you can see here, the more I jump, or the less I jump, it does affect the heat gauge, and this is what your heat is going to be for the next turn, keep in mind. So, if I don't jump at all, I could potentially get rid of all this heat and manage it. So basically, that's going to be an important factor, is trying to manage the heat to an extent. So I think what I'm going to do here is actually maximize my jump potential. Keep in mind the heat again. I am going to run a little bit hot if I fire everything here. Because when you fire all the weapons I'm about to fire on this Jenner, as well as the jump jet, this thing's going to be running incredibly hot for next turn, but the payoff might be worth it. Because we're looking at 85% chances to hit, because this urban mech has no evasive charges on it. It is still a small target, mind you, but with the other effects on it, like arm-mounted weaponry, it's still a respectable chance to hit. So, keep close tabs on the heat. We're probably going to have to consider playing very cautious for next turn with this Jenner mech, but the reason why it's shooting at the right side is so valuable, that's where its heavy autocannon 10 is at, so destroying that is going to be a prime target. And it already took some damage, so I'm taking full advantage of this weak link here. And because I'm shooting from the right side there, it increases my chance to hit said right side. This is a bit where the management comes in. Since when I'm at that angle, I can only hit the right arm, the right torso, the right leg, and maybe the right rear. Whereas if I was shooting directly in front of it, there is more components that would have increased the randomness or the likeliness of hitting that arm. But at the end, I did still get a little bit lucky, considering that could have hit anything but the legs, even though I was firing like 5 weaponry. So, we're going to move on forward with the Wolverine. This is my big, most durable mech, so I'm okay with it not having as many evasive stacks, evasive charges, because it's probably going to be drawing a lot of fire. Ideally, I want it to draw a lot of fire. And with the autocannon 10 gone, this thing is all but useless, I want to argue, so I'm going to switch my priority to maybe something else. And we have this Centurion here, as you can see, whereas I tried to focus strictly on the flank before, which is demonstrated on the urban mech here, the Centurion is a little more random because I'm looking directly at it, but this will at least soften them up and allow me to plan for future turns.
Attacking from position.
So we get some hits there, loses its evasive stacks, but there was only one weapon that was really in range, so it probably was not as potent an attack as it could have been. Now, with that said, let's get moving. I was hoping to get into the trees and get some cover, but apparently we will not be able to turn fast enough. So that's a bit of a risk there. I could always jump jet though. So that's probably what my strategy is going to be. It allows me to turn around, do 360 turn because you can jump in any direction pretty much. But heat will be a concern. So we're going to have to play this out carefully. It is only 2 lasers. It's not as powerful as like the Jenner is capable of, but it has more mobility. So it serves its role nicely as a scout. And attacking from this flank allows me to potentially destroy the other machine gun arm. Although, I would love to hit that center torso, I'm not going to lie. But we're going to fire everything we got, 60% chance.
Confirmed.
Alas, both lasers hit the leg there, which, once that leg's destroyed, is going to heavily hinder its mobility. And we're going to see a little bit indirect fire, which those missiles can fire indirectly, even if you don't have line of sight, but you do get an aim penalty of sorts. Which at least pays off in this regard, because those missiles could have been a lot more potent.
Internal damage.
But nothing was destroyed just yet. The Locust took the hits. Now, we're on a new turn here, so I think the order of business is to finish off our Locust, ideally, which is heavily damaged. I just gotta find the right target.
I'm here.
And since we're running really hot on heat, we're gonna try and get out of line of sight. Which, if these Centurions are not gonna move, this will be a perfect opportunity for me. Because this Jenner, while hot, has enough firepower to just murder this thing, especially if I'm not going to use my jump jets, keep in mind. So, the plan is still to either, well, both the legs are vulnerable, both these legs could have been destroyed there. So a little bit unfortunate luck, and to manage this heat and maximize my chance of killing this, we're going to fire with all but 1 laser. And the missiles, since it fires technically 4 missiles, there are 4 chances it could hit with a 65% chance, so I'm going to take this opportunity to at least maximize hitting one of these vulnerable components. So, we destroy one of the legs, that should knock it down. It loses a little bit of its initiative, mobility, and all that. And the pilot is also injured from the falls and the effects of being knocked down. But effectively, that mech has negative effects to its shots and what it can do for next turn. Is the main benefit off that. Never mind the fact that it's a sitting duck. So the urban mech is just demonstrating a melee attack for us there. Even though its main can is gone, it still can ram, it can still punch, it can still kick. So, you know what I think it's time to do? It's time to return the favor. So, the main risk of doing a melee attack is if you don't do a certain amount of movement, you are still going to lose your evasive charges. So there's always a risk to doing this. But you can either do a regular melee attack or you can do a jump jet attack, which is a little more powerful, but you take self-damage to your leg components based on the mech and based on the weight, ideally. But I think we return the favor regardless, and it's a 9% chance of melee with 30 damage as it shows on the stats. So we hit straight on there, and also that has that yellow bar you saw underneath is how likely the mech is going to fall over or become unsteady. So once that fills up, they are going to fall over, but there is a certain threshold where they are not allowed to sprint because the mech is unsteady.
Yep.
So let's finish off this week. I think it's time to start engaging our Centurions with our muscle here, since I think these 2 mechs are pretty well managed so far, aside for the chance of random attacks. So our mech, this little shield icon means that they are braced, they are fortified. Since they chose not to move, this is mostly a piloting skill that allowed them to brace as well as shoot in the same turn. Because normally, if you were to brace, you would not be allowed to shoot. So this is mainly a piloting skill trait that allowed them to do that. So, that was what you saw there, called shot. When a mech is knocked down, you are able to augment what chance you are to hit a specific component. So in the case if I want to go for a center torso, every shot that hits the mech successfully has a 70% chance of hitting the center torso, effectively killing it. So that is something you can do as a way to prioritize your attacks. There's also Precision Strike, which is a mechanic that you can build up in a campaign mission in the form of morale, or in a skirmish game in the form of fury, to allow you to do the same thing and have a higher chance to hit, as well as just additional effects. So we're going to soften up our Centurion friend here. Try and be threatening, because otherwise he's going to continue to shoot at our light mechs that are already been hit. So, very promising hits. This mech is a lot more resilient and a lot more durable. So it's going to be tricky to take down, let alone knock down. And our Locust here took all sorts of damage. It's really vulnerable to getting killed by any type of laser weaponry. So keeping out line sight is ideal. And making sure the missiles don't hit me is also a plus. So, what I think the strategy is keep hitting behind the hill while still taking full advantage of this crippled Locust. And if I were to somehow kill both these mechs, the Centurions would no longer be able to do their indirect fire with the missiles because they have nothing to spot for them. But, I think it's time to finish off our friend.
Firing everything I've got.
Let's see if this works out, because that machine gun did poorly. But, we still got the job done.
That's a kill.
First blood is ours. Now, we get to see what the Centurions do, which again, they're going to do their missile barrage. But since I'm in the trees, I do get a little bit of damage reduction or protection. If you're in trees, you get like a 25% damage reduction, so terrain's going to be a very important factor. With, like I was saying before with the Locust, keeping myself hidden from direct weaponry like the cannon and lasers. At least the Locust is safe from even the really scary weapons. Those missiles are not too terrifying unless I let them hit the same component. So what I probably want to do with how vulnerable my internals are is I may want to turn my rear a little bit. Or at least like you're seeing now, turn my side to them so at least it encourages the likeliness of hitting the arm or the side torso or leg. But let's finish off our friend. We are running a little bit hot. I want to get my evasive charges while still doing some damage to this fella. So I think what we're going to do is try and maximize my momentum. And maybe open up for a flank shot for next turn. Jump jets are amazing for mobility and repositioning. And it helps you with your durability and resilience too. Dodging all those attacks, or at least increasing your likeliness to attack. Now, we are shooting the side torso, so this likely is not going to do as much damage as I like. But it will reduce the stack, the final stack of evasion, and maybe finish it off next turn. Although the urban mech is going to act there first. And it took a shot at our Locust, which was pretty painful, but the trees did soak up a little bit of that damage. Now, if we can kill this urban mech in any way, my Locust should be safe from retaliation fire, which is what my strategy is going to be. We still got plenty of heat to manage there, so we have to be very careful about committing with everything, but this is still a lot of damage this generator has, and you get a warning there for when you are overheating. And what happens when you overheat is that you're going to take additional damage for overheating as well as powering down like I said before. So I think to demonstrate that, we are going to commit all out to this. It's a foolish mistake. I would not recommend you doing this unless you really need to kill something quickly. And there is reason to kill this urban mech because it is what's giving them vision. So moment of truth, did we actually kill him? No, we only hit the head, so it's not dead. So we take structure damage, it ignores the armor. And we get ourselves a highlight, so if this continues, we're going to be powered down. But right now, we are taking internal damage, which is demonstrated here, to a vague extent. Everything took 4 points of damage spread out all around.
Waiting for orders.
So it's not something you want to continue doing there, and like I said, there is always a risk of powering down, pretty much when the bar fills up completely. So I dislike my position here. I would like to rotate to somewhere a little bit better, but it's not looking like it's going to happen, so let's instead melee our friend and finish him off.
Understood.
This is still going to hurt like hell and allows me to get into the trees and protect myself from the Centurion. So, the two light mechs are down, we just have the medium mechs to deal with. And since they no longer have vision, they are forced to move, which will help deal with the durability and resilience that they have. And they still don't have vision, so this was a good call. It can be a little bit tricky to understand line of sight sometimes, so you're going to have to guess it a little bit, especially for a move like I did where I wasn't certain about how far they can move. But with all 4 of my mechs available to attack, why not take full advantage of this? Hell, let's take full advantage of this, because I can also jump up on the high ground. You get bonuses and good opportunities for doing this. And it lights up our targets for us. They are still guarded because they had nothing to shoot at, mind you, so... With that said, I could also always melee the target, and that does get rid of the guarded stance as per the rules of a melee attack, but we're just going to try and soften up these targets a bit because we have good chances to hit.
Aye aye. Engaging target.
Now we unfortunately missed with the laser. We hit a bunch of shots on the arm or the side torso.
Hey.
So, one good way to help deal with your heat problem is to try and melee attack an enemy, but we're not quite in range with my Jenner, so that's not a possibility just yet. But, like I said before, melee attack does remove guarded trait there, so this is probably how you want to open up, and it also ignores evasive. Don't ask me how that exactly functions, but it's a good way to get a high chance to hit. And it also highlights what weaponry you're going to fire, although if you want to preserve heat and ammo, you can still toggle it on and off even for a melee attack. You just gotta be aware of what's considered a support weapon with that said. So unfortunately we missed the target even with that chance to hit. But even then, we got a cockpit hit, we removed the guard stance, so this allows us to follow up with a really dangerous salvo of attacks. So I think the spider is going to do just that. We're going to have to be careful again of a melee attack for the same reason I just demonstrated, but
Here we go.
we're going to get in close, we're going to try and destroy some of these key weaponry. So, this is unfortunately on the front arc there, so we're not quite getting the side shot I was aiming for, that I was hoping for. So I may actually switch my target to soften up Centurion, which hasn't really took all that notable damage.
Confirmed.
So we're continuing to soften up the right side. That's never a bad thing, to consistently hit the same component. And like I said, it does destroy the LRMs if I can destroy that side torso, and also injures the pilot for follow-up potential. Especially knocking it down, that's always a good plus. So I think what I'm going to do is have the Centurion cool off for a turn and get in a nice flank shot to kind of continue to damage it. It is going to cool down. You can see its display how much it's going to cool off, and I don't think I'm going to fire with anything. So it's safe from more eternal damage. It is going to try melee as a result, but it missed. Even with the ignoring my evasion stacks, that still paid off. So it looks like this Centurion is going to try and make a play for us. Although it did shoot the Locust, and that hurt like hell. That was a full 60 damage on the side. And it caused us to fall down. So our Locust is a little bit vulnerable, but that was their entire turn. So I am able to potentially pick up that mech, but I'm going to have to, with it falling down, it does lose an initiative. So it is going to go at the same time as the Centurions. Which basically means, since all my mechs get to go first, they are guaranteed to get to act first in the initiative phase 3. So this is going to be very problematic for my mech if I'm not careful. And also, I didn't realize I couldn't actually travel through this terrain for whatever reason. So, we're going to take ourselves a bit of a detour and have some fun with flanking this thing. It's still going to run hot on the Jenner, but it's got the firepower to make it worth it. So, this thing's no longer guarded because it took its shots, and we're going to shoot at its rear. So what's on the rear? LRM-10 on the left torso, AC-10 ammo on the right torso. Keep in mind that there is always a risk of destroying the ammo and causing it to explode. So there's a big risk to this, but I think the overheat chance is really worth this if I can hit with everything. And it looks like good hits. Now we just need a follow-up shot. We're taking more heat damage, but with only 4 heat damage on all components, it is worth the risk, I feel like. I just need a good follow-up now, with everything still being able to act. So we're going to follow this up with another brutal salvo at point-blank range. Also, keep note the range there. Some of these weapons do have very minimum range that's not explained in the game itself. You have to kind of look at it in like the campaign or like the mech bay when you're creating your squad. So what I might do, actually, I will commit to a close range engagement there. I could DFA it. It probably was not a terrible idea, but the chances probably would not have been the best either, considering this rear shot opportunity that I'm presented with. And sadly, this is not a pure rear shot, so I should have paid close attention to where I should have landed. So this is not going to be as effective as I'm probably hoping. So more damage on the arm, the side torso, but not quite a kill just yet. So to finish up this combo of murdering this thing, now just pay attention again. The ring on the Centurion indicates that it is a rear shot. And this is also a good way to ignore the fortified trait. Rear shots do not work on that because you're shooting at their vulnerable rear, which is really weak and really easy to breach. Also, our spider's at risk of overheating, but I think I'm okay with that since it didn't really take much damage aside for its one, well that's, yeah, aside for its torso, so I think this is worth the risk if I can cripple this thing heavily. So, the ammo explosion paid off, and with the right torso also gone, that should have done additional injury to the pilot. So disarming its main weapon is a big deal. It can probably still melee attack if it so wish, but that's still a big deal. And apparently they deemed the Locust no longer a threat, so with the trees and the evasion stacks, we were able to weather that storm decently enough. Now, my Locust is able to get back up. It does refresh its stability stacks there, although it is a little bit crippled with its legs and damage, so it's going to be a lot more easier to at least continue to make unstable. But you can see the result there, just how slow and limping the poor thing is. It is not going to be able to go very far, but it is still able to attack, it is still able to shoot, and that is an exposed torso that we could probably take advantage of. I take that back, we missed completely. Mainly because there was a modifier for it getting up and I wasn't really aware of. But we do survive, we do dodge the attack. A little bit lucky because I'm pretty certain it was like a 70-80% chance to hit if I had to guess. So, our Fury, our morale is now available for precision strike, and it's like what you saw before with a cold shot. So, what I'm going to do, let's see, Jenner is running hot, so I don't think they're candidates for precision strike, alas. But it increases my chance to hit there. We now have 80% to hit the mech. And I think we're going to go straight for the rear and try and finish this off. It works just like when they were knocked down. I make a cold shot, it pushes them back in the initiative phase a bit, and it also will hurt like hell. I don't think anyone is oblivious to that. Do we get the kill though? Yes we do. So Centurion is down, and I think that is a good way to end off there. This is a basic rundown of the gameplay mechanics. There are a lot of other nuances to it there, especially with like the campaign like drop ship to jump ship, managing your crew. We will see about talking about that in the future episodes.